Now let me talk about one of the big things I hear a lot and that can really make a difference in how you perceive the grooves to be, the drums to be grooving, and just adding dynamics and more of a musical natural feel. So I'm gonna start by kick snare again. Let's do 2 bars. Alright, cool. Let's add some hat. Let's find a hat that we like. That one's pretty good. Let's copy this guy. Fucking guy. Alright, so dunk, dang, dunk, dang. Feels like there should be more hat. Like there feels like there should be hat between the hats, right? Alright, so let's just copy those and add them in here. That sounds like that drummer has a tennis elbow, if you ask me, because it sounds like he plays like this, right? So here's a thing about drummers, how they typically play hat. They tend to go for the downbeats, so 1, 2, 3, 4. That seems to come from the elbow a lot. And then the and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that tends to come from the wrist. So what happens is we get a much more accentuated 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we get a lesser hit on the and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a real good way of faking that, and this is something I almost always do, is I'm gonna pull down the velocity on the ands, which is these guys are highlighted right now. So now those are softer, quieter. Let's compare. All right, so that starts to feel more human, right? And then we pull this down again. Now you can even try to, let's go for a closer hat there. All right, so that gives us like a gross, Tommy Lee, dunk, bop, dunk, dunk, bop, dunk, bop, dunk, dunk, bop. Is that gross? It's one of the Motley Crue songs. So that feels almost like an extreme version of that, or more accentuated. But here, I probably typically what I do, I'm just gonna hit play and adjust it to where I think it sounds good as it's playing. That sounds much more like a drummer to me. So here we have the ba, oh, ah. So it's like arm, hand, or elbow, wrist, elbow, wrist, elbow, wrist. And if you look at any drummer, that's pretty much how they play, you know, da, do, ba, do, ba, do, ba, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. This is also where you can experiment with making it swing a little bit, if you so wish, by pulling this and 1 and 2 and 3 and. If we make those happen a little bit later, we're gonna start feeling it like we're swinging a little bit. And if you want to get that Metallica Black Album, kind of super heavy, not straight, not quite swung, Lars Ulrich groove, this is a good way to do it if you want to fake it. I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this bad boy back a little bit, so the ants are gonna happen a little bit later. Let's see what it sounds like. Straight. I'm gonna start pulling it back a little bit. It just starts feeling more laid back, like it's hanging back on the groove. Like the kick and the snare still lands exactly on the grid, but like that hat is starting to drag a little bit. And if I pull it back even more, we're gonna start feeling it like it's bop, 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 like it's a shuffle. That feels so weird to me because that's like right in between straight and shuffle. So that starts to sound like a kind of like a blues shuffle to me. And if we want to be real sneaky, we can kind of like ghost note this on the snare drum. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but start to sound like a blues beat almost. But yeah, there you have it. Hi-hats. Just make the ands at a lower velocity, and it starts to sound like a drummer. So what happens if we want to set up for a drum fill? So something drummers very often do is they will increase the dynamics of the hi-hat as they lead into fill. The fill typically happens at the end of a phrase, so at the end of 4 bars, good place to put a drum fill. So here I would probably put a fill. I'm gonna put the easiest slash dumbest fill of all time. It's also super common. We can go tika tika tuku 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 tuku. And I'm sure there's faster ways of doing this, but this is how I do it. Cool, let's check this out. Gosh darn, it's a musical masterpiece. So what I'm getting at here, typically a drummer wouldn't play the hi-hat the exact same dynamic. He would probably start opening that hat a little bit as he leads into the fill. Very, very common. So let's program that in. So around here-ish, since the good people at TuneTrack, who make Superior Drummer, have recorded and mapped a bunch of different levels of openness on a hi-hat, this is really easy to do. So we compare, this is where we play groove. So now it's a little more open. Now it's a little more open. Let's see what it sounds like. Okay, in context. Almost a little too early. I'm just gonna keep this one. Alright, so that already sounds better. Now what if we want to make some accents on that hi-hat as we play along? That would be a good place. So that would be like the 4 and of every bar. So what if we grab that guy and just make that more open? And I'm gonna really, I want it to be accented, so I'm gonna make it loud on the velocity. And a drummer probably wouldn't play this one either, because if he goes doom bang doom bang, he's setting up for the fill. I don't know if he would play that and, so I'm just gonna remove that one. Maybe he's a fancy drummer, and if he's a fancy drummer, he might keep the foot going. So that's going to be stepping on hats. If you've heard the Euthanasia album with Megadeth, there's a ton of steppy hi-hat. Like whenever the drummer goes over to the right cymbal, or whenever he plays a fill, he kind of quarter notes that hat with his foot. And they mixed it pretty loud, which I think is pretty cool. Let's see what this sounds like. Yeah, this one is almost can't hear it. You would have to like automate that up if you were mixing it.